Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
For instance, if I go into a Christmas elf, I gotta stay the Christmas elf unless I'm doing something weird for effect. If I let that slip, or I drop out of it, or I say something that a Christmas elf wouldn't say, unless you want to have it, for effect. We would like to be a summer vacation elf, as a matter of fact, like onto those islands. That's more what we want.
Welcome to Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Rowell Gormon, as in Tootsie Roll. Rowell, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Well, you got the name already, although I'll answer to hey you or just about anything else. I've been working in voiceovers, or radio and voiceovers, for about 50 years, and semi-retired, although a little bit more retired than semi. Maybe we can still change that. Who knows? I do primarily commercial work, corporate work, some animation, but nothing major. I do corporate animations, and I've had some puppeting experience, and even done a couple of stints as a hired hand for Jim Henson's Muppets some years ago.
Aha! Hired hand. So you're literally a puppeteer? Is that what that means?
Yeah. I did a local kiddie show's puppets for a few years, and that gave me the opportunity, or at least the cred, to audition when they needed some local or regional puppeteers when they filmed a couple of movies in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Nobody's made a joke about the hired hand and the puppeteer? Trying to think of something.
No. Once in a while, people will refer to me as my puppet's right-hand man, but nobody's made a joke. Hands.
Yeah, we got to hire the right hand to do the work of the. Oh, we're not going to get to that. So, how you said 50 years voice acting, right?
Yeah.
What was it like 50 years ago? What was it like? What was everyone's new in this industry?
Well, it's a lot simpler, and there are easier ways to get started, like local radio, which hardly exists anymore. But there were also fewer opportunities because we didn't have internet. It was a matter of who you could reach and who you could drive to easily and still make it worth the money. So it's a two-edged sword, but a welcome one. I've done work for people I've never had a chance to.
Yeah, it sounds like you evolved along with the industry.
That was the goal anyway, and I seem to have made it okay. They haven't put me away yet.
Not yet. Awesome. Well, Rowell, you ready to get started?
Let's see how this works. I've never tried one of these before.
All right, fair enough. So, listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build, and we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. The whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So, Rowell, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
Maybe I could agree to that. I sort of see the comic as someone who has prepared material, things ready to go. And not that he can't ad lib or shift around, but goes up to an audience with some idea of what he's going to do. A comedian has that, but I think also, uh, well, a friend of mine says, "Don't tell people I'm funny. I don't tell jokes." That's kind of where I land. I can't remember a lot of jokes, and as I get older, that gets worse. But I'm a good reactor, and I'm good at ad-libbing, and still good at shifting my voice into different character types when necessary.
Excellent. Do you have
So
a
that was a
villain?
long one. Hmm?
Do you have a
Sorry again.
villain? A villain voice?
A bill. Uh, right now, I call myself the a trusted voice of experience, now in his seventh childhood.
Oh, wow. I like it. I like it. That sounds there's a lot of depth and repetition in that. So there's some patterns that emerge. So Roll, are you ready for the first question?
Let's give it a try.
All right. So it's about the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the
Mhm.
comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
I think it's got to be at least 50%, in my case, probably more, because a lot of performers, I don't know how you relate, but they they um, they almost have to put on a character before they have the nerve to perform. Now, not everybody's like that, I realize, but my persona off mic or off camera is a little more subdued, maybe not as outgoing, and from what I've been told, very less entertaining than when I am entertaining or in a character, doing a
Hmm.
bit, doing a part. So
Okay. So
with me, I
then,
think it's going to be at least 50-50 because there's got to be
interesting.
something of the person behind it. Sorry, I think I
Yeah.
bumped the mic.
Yeah.
There's got to be something of the person behind it to keep it authentic.
Yeah, at 50-50, it sounds like you're keeping everyone on edge. You're not sure, is he acting? Is that who he really is? It makes it seem more authentic. Would you agree?
There you are. I had one director when I was doing corporate videos on camera as either a character or a spokesperson, commented to the person we were auditioning for, said, "Look, this guy may not look like much, but wait till he gets into the script and he comes to life." And I guess that was a fair cop.
Did you say he was on camera, the director?
No, I used to do a lot more on camera than I do now. It's too much like work. But I would play, a worker, a CEO, a doctor, an attorney, a frustrated customer, things like that.
Hmm. So voice acting's a little more fun, is what you're saying?
Well, it's a lot more fun, and you don't have to memorize much, and you don't have to go into makeup or costumes, or well, it's easier to do a pickup if something goes wrong. So, yeah, audio is my first love.
Okay.
I've done some theater. I've never tried to be a stand-up comic, although some of that, I guess, overlaps a little in the things I've done.
Absolutely. The authenticity part would be great. The 50-50 aspect, I could see that really working out well
Mhm.
because, as doing comedy, you want it to be as authentic as possible, but yet you want to have that relationship with the blind spot. So we'll see if that
Right. Well, I've
rings a
had
bell.
people compliment me um, in terms of authenticity, th- even in the wacky kind of characters. If
Hmm.
it's not consistent or if it's not believable,
Hmm.
you're not just doing a funny voice.
Right.
There's got to be something behind it. I've been complimented that even my most unbelievable characters have some sort of a believability factor to it.
Yeah,
The
that's
ad-libbing,
great.
I think, is part of that.
For instance, if I go into a Christmas elf, I gotta stay the Christmas elf unless I'm doing something weird for effect. If I let that slip or I drop out of it or I say something that a Christmas elf wouldn't say, unless you want to have it, well, for effect. We would like to be a summer vacation elf, as a matter of fact, like onto those islands. That's more what we want.
I love it. I love it. And that's a place to vacation if I saw one of those. So what about now I got to ask because you went to the elves. What about the DMT mechanized elves that people talk about now? Very fashionable.
Uh,
You mean the AI things? Or
It's, potentially, we don't know where they're coming from. I may be going a little too far in left field on that, but just for everyone watching, yeah, it's a drug that gets you very, very psychotic, and you
oh,
see things. And one of them are machine elves, and consistently so. And so your voice is very consistent, and I could just imagine a character coming out from that. So I'm
uh,
I'm reading into this quite a bit.
if it's got a human behind it, I'm still all for it. Because everything we do, everything I do, is fake to some extent. I mean, that elf character only exists in my head and maybe in the head of whoever's listening, or if it's animated, the drawing takes that over.
Hmm.
But there's got to be some reality to it. Otherwise, it's just homogenized.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, so how about punching up versus punching down? So where do comics versus comedians subscribe to this? And let me put in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Yeah. When I first heard that question, I thought, man, that sounds more like the first critic, not the first comedian.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. So that would be the answer. So then is constructive criticizing of dead people considered punching down?
If it's constructive, I guess. You could use, I suppose, the deceased in some sort of a funny story. If it's too denigrating, you'd have to be. It would have to be part of your style. There are insult comics. I don't know you're old enough to remember Don Rickles,
Yeah.
but uh, they're, that's their shtick. And Lewis Black does it to some extent, but he brings his into more of it's feathered through a personal frustration, and at least that's how it relates to me, the frustration part, not
Mm,
getting somebody. But yeah, I would prefer punching up. I gravitate more toward that
mm.
because that's the only way some people like me can get even with some of those goofs.
What about Socrates? Did he have any friends?
I don't know. Was that the one that they made him drink his own poison?
That's
Or was
correct.
that Eric?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, why'd he do it? Yeah, he had no one over, no one he could have just, hey, buddy, follow me. We're ostracized, but no one went. So he decided to
The,
take the easy way. Now
the
I'm
original,
criticizing dead people.
yeah, the original Tough House.
All right, so how about the cultural translation of comedy? So how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Well, mainly because the person telling him is oblivious to the lifestyles that he or she is trying to entertain. It can be a matter of language being different or a word meaning something different, which ruins the whole gag. I got to move that microphone. Sorry about that. Um, Victor Borge, the Danish comic who did the phonetic punctuation routine,
Hmm.
he built some of his comedy on that, the differences in language. And once in a while he would say, where I come from, it's very hard to pronounce the words with T and H, especially when they are both together. Now, I don't know how he would use that in Denmark, but it always amazed me. He had so many countries he could perform in, and
Yeah.
he had enough material where he knew how to tailor it to the audience that he had.
Yeah. I remember as a child watching, he's very, very intelligent. It was fascinating. It really was. It's a very, very unique person, very unique human. So how
But
does the silence
yeah,
when
even
uh-huh.
I'm sorry, well, even Senor Wences, remember the box with the Sarite and the little hand puppet, the little Johnny. Most of the stuff he did was more of his humor was based around the human condition, which is a little bit more universal
Right.
culture to culture. And so that's another way to get around it.
So was he a comic or a comedian?
I would say he was a comic in that he had his routines down. A comedian, perhaps, because he was playing to not so much a cultural difference, but human character. There are certain human characteristics that do bridge the nationalities, I think.
He transcended comedy, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that could be because a lot of the funniest people that I've researched or know about are some of the saddest people I have ever encountered, or the most angry, or the most screwed up, and yet
Yeah.
they've got it. They can make people laugh.
Yeah. So then, how does the silence when your joke doesn't land hurt? Physically, emotionally, morally, or spiritually?
Um, for me, it might hurt emotionally, like the little voice in the back of your head that tells you you're no good. That's where that guy kicks in. Aha, you thought that was going to work, huh? I fooled you. Um, with the things that I'm doing, if I don't have so much depending on a prepared bit, it doesn't
Mhm.
hurt as much because I'm off to the next whatever the stream of consciousness brings in. Uh, and then you have other comics' reactions when you can tell something like that's happened to them. I forget the comic, but he said, "Well, hey, they can't all be gems," and moved on to the next one. If
Yeah.
you're in a play and something doesn't work, well, you know what you've got to say next, so you cut your losses, pretend that pause was supposed to be part of the show, and try not to think about it.
That's a tough one, but yeah, you got that right. So, would you say that comics are more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
Mm, I wouldn't say that because that goes back and messes up my stance that the comedian would have to be uh, more more culturally specific, more human condition. I may have gotten off track there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, these questions are very tricky. They're mind twisters. Eventually, you're going to find a knot and you're going to get stuck, and I got to disentangle. So, how about love and justice? So, is the highest
Love and
function of
justice.
well, yeah, is the highest function of
What?
comedy to expose injustice or to make people feel less alone while living with it?
Well, I don't think they're necessarily exclusive, but in my humor, um, Uh, my humor, I would think, would more fall into that second category, helping people figure they're not alone, whether it's something that they feel oppressed by, or things that they're irritated by, or things that they just find funny that they wonder about.
Mhm.
Am I a bad person for feeling this?
Uh,
So, yeah, I
Very
Brett
Ricky
Skelton.
Gervais. Laughing at his
Yeah,
jokes, you could feel bad.
yeah.
Judgy.
But
Yeah.
Red Skelton said at least in humor, you've got to be real
Beady, beady,
careful
beady.
not to get too specific because the goal is to make the person in the audience nudge the guy next to him and say, "Hey, I know somebody just like that." Because if he says, "Hey, that's me," he might come up and kill you.
Yeah, that's where the heckler comes out. You strike the nerve and they touch
There
their
you
ego in
go.
a way yeah, they're like, I didn't know you could do that. What? Your fingers popping out from the eyeball. So, very important question, Roll. Advertising and self promotion. Who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Not being a magician, I don't know that I can say with authority, but I would say the magician, by the nature of his craft or art, has to advertise more to get an audience. I'd say second in line would be the comic, finding a place to play. The comedian's a comedian no matter where he is. Now, to make money, maybe he has to advertise, but I'd say in that order.
Yes. So the magician, because of secrecy, what is the aspect that's not so apparent?
Well, it's just a matter of finding a good magician. Where are you going to look? Places where magicians promote themselves.
Got it. So it's a supply and demand dynamic.
Yeah, and not as many around, so they might be a little bit more difficult to find. Comics, again, second tier in that equation, but not as hard to find. Either people who are genuine comics or people who think they are. And then comedians, well, everybody's a comedian, according to some folks. You
All
can't get
right.
away from them.
Yeah, many would say that you are as a child, then you grow up, become a comic, and then you try and revert back to comedian as a child
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
So
Growing up is overrated. That's why I never
I
did.
agree. So, Roll, what don't you want me to know about you?
What do I not want you to know about me? Hmm. That boy, that's a tough one because if I don't want you to know, why would I tell you?
I know.
Let's see. That I am usually insecure. I have a problem with uh, rejection. A lot of performers I meet do, so I don't feel quite so alone as I used to. But I think if people are aware of that, they might be a little harder to win over. Like, oh, I see. Technique, huh? All right. So
All
that's
right. I like
probably what I'll settle on.
Fair enough. So, how about censorship and defense? So, does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
There's a line, but I think a good comic can't worry too much about offending. Obviously, you don't want to go out of your way to tick off the people who are paying to see you or paying to have you do a commercial or whatever. But I don't know about censorship. I don't think it's right to just go out of your way to be nasty. There are plenty of comics who uh, have questionable material. They can hit a nerve, but that's part of commenting on human nature. Uh, Even Mark Twain, got a lot of people mad at him. So
At the time,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
So
if you read
then,
some things he says about politicians and men in general, it can still draw some censorship, but that doesn't make it any less funny.
yeah. So, who survives better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
Well, I again would give the magician higher marks on that one just because his material is usually, unless he slants it a certain way within a joke, is usually more about the trick or about the illusion rather than about a person or a type of person. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be done that way. The comedian, I think, is probably the most vulnerable because to some extent, he or she has got to have a product, a character, a persona to attract audiences. And a comedian, to some extent, maybe has that, but I think is more able to shift to different styles of comedy a little more easily and it isn't stuck in, I won't say rigid, but in so much of a formatted presentation as stand-up has his routine, has his material, and is more likely, I think, to be in front of an audience who's more apt to take offense. I don't know
So,
if that
okay.
answers your question, but that's where
Yeah.
I'm going with it.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, how about timing and delivery? Is it a science or an art?
Hmm. Ah, boy, that's good.
That's a tough one.
It is because I don't want to keep saying it's 50-50 because there are some elements, but you can have the art down pat. And if your timing's bad, it doesn't matter. So the science, though, if you're
You,
just
you said
telling
you
a
can
joke,
have the art down pat. So how isn't art? I mean, one definition of art would be working with chaos, right?
yeah, or keeping your character in character, or having the material down to where it's smooth, having a
Okay.
good progression from one bit to the next, that can be art. But if your
Yeah.
timing is off, especially if you're working with somebody else, that's a train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Staying in character is an art. I wouldn't say that's a science because you're dealing with the chaos at that moment,
Mhm.
right? You get tired, whatever it is. I mean, a lot of people, you can't keep an accent going for because of the energy level, right?
And
Not because
and
you're, uh
Yeah. And in theater, especially with a live audience, you tend, if you're doing comedies and there's humor in the script, you tend to do things where you recognize that, well, this is supposed to be funny. Let's see how it goes, and it gets a laugh, and you know instinctively when to wait for the laugh to die out, but not quite all the way.
Mhm.
And then if there's a second punchline, that's when you spring that on them. And if there's a third, same thing like that. Is the pauses. That's where the art gives way to um,
The
the
science.
timing and the science, I think,
Okay. All right.
because
So,
you have to really know, because if you jump in too soon, you kill the gag.
yeah, you do murder it slightly.
And
You may not die.
by the
Slight
way, I
murder.
apologize. On my side of things, I keep interrupting you, and I think it's the digital delay. I'm sorry. I don't
Yeah.
mean to do
That's a
that.
no, it's a thing. It's what happens. Just the technology. So, role
That's
is
all right. We'll fix
truth. Uh-huh. No, it's well,
what's
you've
that?
got to work with it. Is this science or art when we have to deal with these the technical issues? What do you think?
It's science, damn it, and I wish they'd fix it real quick.
Love it, love it. Is that your naughty professor? Wait, so I want to answer
Uh,
that question.
that's my grouch.
Okay, all right. So
Science is
roll.
getting in the
Ah, I like it. So is truth treasure in heaven?
truth treasure. You mean
In
when you get
heaven?
to heaven, you get truth in heaven?
Eh, Is it? Is truth treasure in
I
heaven? It's a tough question.
that one, I'm not sure how to process that question, because to me, truth is
Yeah.
treasure right here.
That's true. It could be also on Earth, and so
Yeah.
is it even relevant elsewhere? That's a good point. All right, so roll. Are you ready to enter the multiverse?
Well, let's find out.
All right. Board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. So you have to choose an avatar. So if comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist avatar, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist avatar, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
I'd have to say the latter, because those elements inform what I might try to do to service the comedy.
Okay, so it's to service the comedy. So, huh. So I mean, that's a science. Would you agree?
Yeah, it could be kind of like a race car driver knowing how to handle the car in order to
Make
get
a
the
turn.
emotion, yeah, or just win the race, the emotional goal of winning. He's got to know how to handle the tools at hand, in his case, the car, um,
Okay.
or
Okay.
it has a lot harder chance of working.
So then does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
By orchestrated sonically, what do you mean?
Sound?
Well, sound is my first love. I love sound effects.
Hmm.
So, and I there's and speaking of sounds, there's my stupid bat phone. Let me turn that off. Um, and sound is part and parcel of doing character voices. So I guess if I have to be honest about my own style and career, it would have to be more sound, but I can't say as I'd ignore the other alternative. Um,
Okay.
but
Fair
yeah,
enough.
sound I think for me is more important anyway.
All right. So, Roll, here on the Comedians and Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest.
Oh
And the
boy.
previous guest was Lisa Dade. And her question for you, Roll, is if your life had a laugh track, which moment would it play after?
Which moment would it play after? Usually when I drop something, trip, or some other equivalent of physical comedy. Not so much, well, maybe when I say something stupid, but uh, those always don't always have those always don't have a comic effect. I think Mel Brooks said something about the difference between comedy and tragedy. Comedy is when you fall down an open manhole and darn near kill yourself. Tragedy is when I finally I discover I have a hangnail.
Ah, I like it.
So the laugh
Ah,
track would probably come from the stupid things I do physically rather than so much of what I say. Um,
okay. Okay.
consist-
I like it. All right, so last question, legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics Type 5 survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
I'm trying to think of the people that I remember. And most of the comics, and being old, I gravitate towards the older ones. I don't know as much of the new generations as I probably should. But I tend to remember the persona, the comic personas, and the routines rather than the individual jokes, which is not to say I don't remember the lines, but like the Marx Brothers. I
Hmm.
know a few of their routines and I could quote a few of their lines, but I remember their comic personas more. So I would lean toward that.
Okay, I like it.
Because you got a lot
Awesome.
of comedians on vaudeville, and I don't remember or even know about any of them. If you have to go on just the routines or their catchphrases.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like it. So, Raul, where can everyone find you online?
Well, I hide out at a website called voices2go.com. I shamelessly advertise it here. It's the word voices, the number two, don't type in TO, and then go.com. And that has my voiceover demos, some of the videos that I've done, a few clips of the puppeteering, the animation. You won't find any Disney stuff or any of the, I wish I'd been doing Hanna-Barbera along with Dawes Butler years ago, but that he turned out to be a mentor without knowing it. Mel Blanc, I've met a couple of times, but I had to keep quiet there. I didn't want to get thrown out for fear of being looked at as challenging the old gunfighter. But he was a big influence early on. And so voices2go.com and go explore and contact me if you want to. I'm always glad to hear from a new creative person. Doesn't have to be a voiceover talent necessarily.
I like it. Awesome, Roll. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
If you're interested in too much information like in the network state or Mantipus the chicken shit, check out this video. Or is it this one right here? Well, either way. Lizard.